This is the first episode of a FIFA 21 Ultimate Team series where I look to implement a specific footballing philosophy and break down and analyse tactical ideas and the play styles of my opposition. The secondary goal of this series is to, with no FIFA points spent, look to acquire Johan Cruyff. Cruyff epitomises a footballing ideal that has inspired not only myself but also millions of others all around the world. As one of the finest players in history, this translates over to the virtual pitch, where he will be able to be deployed across any of the attacking positions in my chosen setup. His 5-star weak foot and 5-star skills, along with elite attacking statistics, will enable a level of versatility that will help deliver great results in the right way. So, what ideas am I looking to implement? The overriding idea is to play on the front foot attacking football. The implementation of a plan that revolves around controlling the game, but also creating high risk but high reward situations in attack. The playstyle's characteristics are fluidity and flexibility in attack, and squeezing the space on the pitch to smother teams and force turnovers as high as possible. It's important to discuss player instructions and roles of the team first before discussing what tactics are used in game, as player instructions won't generally change but the tactics used will. Striker. Drift wide. It's vital to remain fluid and unpredictable in attack. Having a player remain fairly stationary occupying just the two centre-backs is too predictable and makes it easy to cover for the opposition. Drift wide allows for heavier rotation and keeps the opponent unsure of where danger will come from. I also want majority of the control over runs and positioning of the striker, so default settings for the rest of the instructions make the most sense. Wingers. Stay wide and get into the box for crosses. The wingers play an important role in the build-up of play, but also in providing penetration behind the opponent's defensive line. They work with the centre mid, striker and fullbacks to progress the ball and create dangerous 1v1 situations out wide. Get into the box is also an important instruction to create overloads in the box and allow for cutbacks or low crosses into the box to allow for another dimension for finishing off attacks. Again, everything else left on default to allow for the majority of the control in my hands on how they move. Central midfielders. Free roam. The central midfielders are link players between the defence and the attack during transition. In the defensive phase, they press, harry and shut off both central areas and create numerical overloads on each side. The attacking responsibility of the two central midfielders are to create combinations with the wide players and the striker. They also have an important role of running beyond the ball to overload the box and get into dangerous areas for crosses or cutbacks. Defensive midfielder. Man mark, drop between defenders and cover centre. The defensive midfielder has the most important role in the overall build-up and attacking shape of the team. The shape created is essentially an asymmetrical 3-4-3 with all zones of the pitch covered. The CDM has a clear role of recycling the ball and distributing out from the back through progressive passes. This is done by diagonals to the fullbacks or wingers, as well as breaking the press through vertical passes into the midfield. Wingbacks. Inverted run type. The wingbacks create a passing outlet inside to create a numerical advantage, as the central midfielders push up and the wingers stay wide. With the defensive midfielder dropping between the centre-backs, this allows the fullbacks to push higher up the field. This gives the team the opportunity to either overload the wings or the half spaces. This is important to progress the ball or to create combinations in the attack. The wingbacks also complete aggressive runs inside or outside the winger. This makes tracking runs for the opposition difficult. The fullbacks are also the main crossing outlet for the team, as the wingers push inside and pack the box for cutbacks or crosses. Centre-backs. Default. Manual, fast and aggressive pressing of the ball are the main requirements of the centre-backs. It is important to cut the play high and aggressively press the ball to force mistakes or rush the opponent. This will help stifle their play and allow for quick recovery of the ball. Goalkeeper. Comes for crosses, sweeper keeper. Speed off the line is vital, as a high line is sometimes susceptible to long balls. The goalkeeper acts as an auxiliary defender to prevent these long balls catching out the high line. So, moving on to the tactics that I want to use. These are subject to change as personnel comes in and patches come out for the game. Press after possession loss. Press after possession loss is a calculated risk. It creates situations for quick and high recovery of the ball, as well as stifling opponents. However, if not executed well, it leaves space to exploit for the opposition. This is an important part of my game plan though, so it's important to implement. Width 5. Width on an even 5 allows for flexibility in reacting to my opponents. It doesn't commit players either inside or outside too much. This puts the onus on my decision making. Depth 8. Depth on 8 again is a calculated risk. Squeezing the space that the opponent can build up in will allow control over how the opponent builds up. If they cannot pass out of the press, this will allow me to win the ball high for dangerous attacking situations. If they don't want to pass out of the press, this then forces them to go long, which should be handled by my defence as they numerically outnumber the opposition's attackers. Possession. Having passing options is important for progressing the ball, and having players show for the ball will allow for a more consistent retention of it. If breaking lines is needed, this can always be triggered manually, which I want control over. Width 6. Attacking width is important. Having this on 6 will allow me to attack both through the middle and the wide areas. This also provides a good position for my players to take up to take advantage of the channels and half spaces. This is particularly important when dealing with defensive sides. Players in box 7. Having this value high on 7 is vital to have passing combinations in the final third and give options for crosses and cutbacks. This amount also creates the 5-man push into the box, which does not allow the opposition the chance to comfortably track all the players running into the box. This is one of the key values for a fast and efficient counter-attack as well, which gives another facet to my game, which makes fast counter-attacks or slow build-up difficult to read for my opponent. Corners and free kicks 4. This again is a calculated risk, as committing a lot of players into the box or around it for set pieces can leave the team susceptible to counters if the ball is cleared. The idea behind this is to flood the box and edge to pick up loose balls if they come out, and have more players in there to attack the ball when it's played in. Being dangerous from set pieces and having an aerial threat is another important way to get a goal that might be needed if an opponent is difficult to break down. So, to finish the overview, I think it's important to actually see what these instructions and tactics look like in-game. I'm going to break down a couple of different key scenarios that are created both in the attack and the defence to illustrate what plays are created. So, to finish off the first episode, I'm going to be breaking down a couple of key tactical movements that happen in this formation. One of the key elements of the attacking play is exploiting space in the half spaces and out wide, either through midfield runners, but also more importantly the fullbacks, who will look to outnumber the midfielders in combination play, but also make penetrating runs. As the ball is played out to the winger, who has stayed extremely wide, this opens up a space inside for the fullback. His run isn't tracked, and the pass means he can take the ball at full speed. This ends with a low dangerous cross into the box for the attacker. Another example of exploiting the half space involves the central midfielder and striker combining. They do this to create a pocket of space in behind for the winger to exploit. As the fullback plays the ball into the winger, the centre midfielder pushes into the half space to collect the ball. The striker then holds his position. The striker doing this creates an angle for a first time through ball to the winger. This is the difference between breaking the line and not. The final example I'm going to use of utilising the wide areas is a good example of how the forward runs from the central midfielders create space and overload opposition defences. As the ball is recycled into the central defensive midfielder, the centre mid makes an aggressive run into the opposition backline. This causes the fullback to tuck in and creates a 2v1 situation out wide for the fullback and the winger. The opposition fullback then cannot get across quickly enough, and an attacking chance is generated within 2 passes. The striker isn't the furthest player forward and has made a late run into the box to attack the space for a through ball or cutback. This then leads to a goal. I'm now going to break down some of my defensive behaviours and the general shape that the team takes in a defensive setting. After heavy commitment towards the box, I lose the ball. This leads to the opportunity from the opposition to attack through a long through ball. As the ball is played into the attacker, there is a 3v2 at the back in my favour. There are also 2 more opposition goal side of my players for a quick switch that would lead to a dangerous situation. To prevent the player on the ball being able to turn and do this switch, I surround the ball with 3 players to block this area. This type of high line requires aggressive pushing of the ball to prevent the switch being possible. It carries a lot of risk, but is effective when executed properly. So, that was the general overview of what to expect moving forward this year. We have a clear goal and plan that should be achievable as we get into the game. In the next episode, we'll have a brief look at how I got on starting the game on the web app, and then move into my placement games in squad battles and rivals, and analysing how the games went.